Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon, lovely people, depending on where you are watching us from in this beautiful, glorious world of ours. I'm really, really excited about today because Gretchen and I have been on our very first episode of Unsilence Grief when I relaunched my podcast under the new name. And now I have you back. Please, everyone, welcome Dr. Gretchen Holmes. I'm so excited that you're here today.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
I remember when we did this very first episode under Unsilence Grief, and you were my guests. We were talking about your book coming out. I can't remember if we actually talked about it on or behind camera, but I said I need to have you back when your book is out. And drum roll, please. We will be talking about this today because the work in between is now available. So, Gretchen, for those of our audience who have not watched the first episode, I will definitely be sharing the link to our first interview in the comments below. But please do us the honor and give us a bit of an introduction and share with our audience who you are and why you are here.
Sure, happy to do that. And of course, thank you for having me on. I am always so excited to get to talk with you.
So happy to
In
have
a
you.
nutshell, my story. So I'm a three-time cancer survivor. And in 2021, I was diagnosed diabetic. And I had been obese or morbidly obese my entire life. I tried to lose weight, I'd lose some, gain it all back, and then some. But when I was diagnosed diabetic, it shook me deeply. And so I decided then and there I really needed to do something. And I'd even been stage 4 cancer at one point, and being diagnosed diabetic shook me more than that did
Wow.
because I'd been watching my younger brother struggle with diabetes for about 10
Mm.
years. He'd already lost a leg to amputation. He was already on dialysis and he was not doing well. And
Yeah.
I thought, that's going to be my future if I don't do
Yeah.
something. It was
Mm.
very real, it was very clear. And so I decided that evening to lose weight, get healthy,
Yeah.
make some changes. And I wanted to make sustainable ones because at the time I was in my late 50s and
Yeah.
I had tried this so many times and I did it in such a way that I never really took a look at why I was self-soothing with food and why I was
Mm.
overeating and what was causing all of this. And I finally figured out two things. One, I realized I still have time because being diagnosed diabetic, I was barely diabetic. And I thought
Yeah.
it has not ravaged my body yet. I have
Mm.
time. I can turn this around. I could
That's
have done it
incredible.
when I was diagnosed pre-diabetic, but I didn't. But
Mm.
I did this time. The other thing, because I knew my brother didn't have time, and there are many others who don't, but I
Yeah.
did. And I thought, what an incredible gift. And the
Mm.
other thing I realized, you better start figuring out why you do this, why you
Mm.
disrespect your body, why you do
Yeah.
not treat
Yeah.
yourself with the
Yeah.
level of respect you deserve. So I started the transformational journey, but I did it from the inside out. And I lost 110 pounds. I've kept it off now for 2.5 years. And from
Wow.
that, I started the
Wow.
podcast and then I wrote a book.
Wow. Like 110 pounds. This in
Yes.
itself, like this is like, and I said that to you before, Gretchen. I am just in awe because like all the other things that you were dealing with aside, but just that fact alone, like how many people are struggling with weight gain and loss and gain and loss and gain and loss, but never really get to the point where they can keep it down and sustain it. And then there are two, actually three things that I want to highlight, really highlight what you just said that really resonates with me so deeply. The first one is the recognition of I've got time. I can do something about it. The second one is the uh, doing the inner work. That is huge. That is really huge in such that I have I have been there myself. I have been on the journey where I lost 20 kilos and I felt great and fantastic. And I thought I looked so amazing. And I really loved how I felt in my body. Yet the biggest element that was missing was self-love. I had not
Mm,
been on that journey and I was lacking self-love big time. And I was not wanting to be aware of it, let me put it that way. And the
sure.
third thing is that you actually took that journey and you are now doing something about it, as in spreading the word and sharing this in your book. And i I started reading your book. I told you very honestly, I'm about a quarter into it now. I wish I could have done the whole thing before we went live. But yeah, life has gotten really, really busy for me lately. But I'm so, so grateful that I got into this book, because I thought I knew your story, and then there are all these extra things coming out, all these details coming out that I wasn't aware of, which I really, really love. And I want to also talk about that with you today. So I just needed to pause you there because I really wanted to highlight that. I think the inner work, the self love, the realizing we do have time, and what a gift that is, what a gift time is such a, important line here, in particular on the podcast that we are speaking on. And how was that for you in terms of, was that a sort of overnight realization with the diagnosis, or was it something that you were already quite aware of, this time factor in your life? How, I'd love for you to share a little bit about that.
Sure. I can tell you the moment it happened. I was on my way home from work and I had a little bit of a drive to get there. And of course, I was thinking about it. I was so
Yeah.
devastated by the diagnosis. And then, I kid you not, a warm feeling came over me. And all of a sudden, I said, "You've just been given the gift of time."
Wow, I just had
And
goosebumps when you said that.
I was emotional,
Mm.
but a huge weight lifted off me in that moment. And
Mm.
I
Pardon the
realized,
pun.
yeah. And I just
Yeah.
realized what a gift it was. And so it went immediately from that moment straight into gratitude.
Mm.
And that was one of the big pieces that was missing in prior attempts at trying to
Yeah.
lose weight or do whatever I was doing,
Yeah.
is that I had always approached it with so much anger and so much
Mm.
self-pity and so much fear and so much
Yeah.
you name it, all the negative emotions, but it was
Yeah.
never done from a place of gratitude.
Oh.
And that
Oh.
completely changed the journey.
Yeah.
I was grateful and happy and thrilled to be feeding my body healthy food. I was
Mm.
grateful that I had the means, the resources, the ability to cook, a spouse that was supportive.
Mm.
Um, I had all of that. And
Yeah.
I had a place to live and I had a house
Mm.
that I could cook in. And I honestly can say, and I'm not even stretching the truth, that when it came to eating, I never had a bad day. I never um, got angry at having to eat healthy. I never felt I
Mm.
was depriving myself. And it's
Wow.
been over 4.5 years now. I
That
still,
is really, really incredible. And I think, it's fair to say what a shift, because so many people address that weight loss journey from a place of self-loathing. I hate the
oh,
way I look, I hate the way I feel.
yeah.
And with that self-loathing, everything becomes a chore, everything becomes an uphill battle. And that's why it's so easy to just fall back down. And what you just, it really hit the nail on the head for me, because I realized that in my own journey, like once you start from the space of self-love, and I do this because I want to, I do this because I feel better, I do this because I want to be there as long as and as healthy as possible for my boys and for myself. I love life. I really do. So I'm like, what on earth am I doing? Not doing the best I can. And that really changed a lot for me. That really shifted a lot of things. And I had a rather eye-opening conversation about that with our mutual friend Rob Pardy when we met up in Vienna, and that was really helpful for me as well. So in your book, you talk really, really openly about everything that was going on with your body, with your various milestones, I want to call them, the milestones along the way with various diagnoses as well as the weight loss. And I remember when we first talked about this, there was also a moment, and I'd love for you to share a little bit more about this. There was also a moment where you felt like a fraud almost, that you said, well, I survived cancer and I shouldn't even be here. And then, you were going through these motions. Can you share a little bit about that? Because I am so glad that you're here to share this and talk openly about what was going on your side.
Yeah, part of the process for me, because I realized I couldn't do all this stuff myself. And I don't know that we are supposed to. I think we all think we're smart enough, we know ourselves, but I think we all need help from other people, whether it's a community or a professional or whatever, to help us identify things, because I had a lot of emotion because I had lost my brother about 3 months after I started
Yeah,
my weight loss process.
yeah,
And I had so much anger, and I had terrible guilt. And I finally figured out after I was in therapy for a while and talking with a coach, and that I had a pretty serious case of survivor's guilt. And I had
yes.
never
Oh,
really talked that much about my
yeah.
cancer stuff because I was still here. And even after 3 times, I was still here. And
Yeah.
I felt guilty because others had had cancer once and they died,
Yeah.
and I didn't. And I felt guilty because my mom and dad and older brother, and then now my younger brother, which is my entire nuclear family, they or birth family, they are all gone. And I
Yeah.
was feeling terrible guilt. And so it was debilitating for me.
Yeah.
And I finally, but it never dawned on me that I had survivor's guilt ever. But
Yeah.
it was a very clear-cut case. And once I was
Yeah.
able to identify that, and it's not that I don't still experience it, but I'm able to kind of put it up on the shelf
Yeah.
and
It's
kind of
incredible once we
leave it there.
name it, we can tame it,
Yeah.
There's this
Yeah.
whole idea of once we understand what we're dealing with, it is easier to actually do something about it because, otherwise you're fighting against like, yeah, phantoms basically. So,
Yeah, you
yeah.
don't even know how to talk about it. And
Yeah.
so that helped me a lot. But because people are always astounded about my cancer journey, and I've never hid it, but I never thought there was a story there to tell. And
Yeah.
then I realized when I started talking to people about it that the story has more to do with patient advocacy and how to take care of yourself and how
Yes.
to make sure your needs are being met, and how to talk to your family members and friends about how you want to be treated, and what do
Yeah.
you need from them, because we have a tendency to think everybody should guess, and they should guess right, and then we get annoyed when
As
they don't.
females anyway, in
Oh
particular,
yeah, it
when
is
you're in a
just in
situation
general,
like that. Yeah.
and then we're disappointed when people we think are going to stand by us don't, or they can't
Yeah.
handle it, and others who we never would have expected step up.
Yeah.
And so I think those are really important conversations to have. And so that's really more how I talk about it is, if somebody gets diagnosed with something serious, you have to talk about it so that everybody kind of knows what they need to do.
Yeah.
It does help. At least it
Yeah.
did. It would have helped me had I done that. But
Yeah.
I was terrible about doing that.
Yeah. Yeah.
sad.
I think, hindsight is always such a 2020 vision, but I am so grateful that you are speaking about these things, because survivor guilt is huge. It is really such a big thing. And as you said, some people get cancer once and pass away from it, and others have it three times. And you are here to tell your story. And I'm so grateful that you are, because your story is really quite remarkable. And one of the things that I've noticed about you very, very early on is how incredibly humble you are. I read through your book, I'm like, oh my God, you're dropping celebrity names left, right, center in terms of all these people in the book. It's like really, it is like a bit of a teaser here, but you need to read this story. It's just so incredible. Your cousin is, I think your cousin, who's the singer.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I came across some of those stories where I'm like, how amazing would that have been? Because she sang for some quite incredible names out there and movies, etc. So that was really
Yeah.
quite beautiful. And for you to have that connection and be taken along, it would have been so amazing to be at these experiences.
Yeah, they were fun. I mean,
They were
I've
fun.
had some amazing times where I thought, who
Yeah,
gets to do this? I mean,
exactly.
this is ridiculous. But
Yeah,
part of my book is really about, bad things happen to everybody.
yeah,
Good things happen to everybody.
yeah.
Uh, but my mom always said, you don't have to build a monument to it. And so it helped me not to allow myself to be
Mm.
victimized by it.
Yeah.
It affected me very strongly, though. I grew up in
Mm.
an alcoholic home, and anybody who has had
Yes.
addiction in their family, it's brutal. And we all have
Mm.
war stories, and we can probably
Yeah.
all tell some pretty nasty stories. And I'm not saying that it doesn't impact us. It absolutely does. I mean, that's where my self-soothing with food came from. That's where
Mm.
my sense of not being worthy came from, not because my family told me I wasn't. They loved me.
Mm.
And there was
Yeah.
still a great deal of love in my family, even with the
Mm.
addiction. But I told me, I said that. That was the message I was giving myself. And so it
Mm.
wasn't until I was in my late 50s that I finally started to love myself, to respect myself, to realize that you cannot heal, you cannot change your life for the better if you don't start learning how to love yourself first and
Yeah.
realize that you're worth putting the effort into your own life. And one of the
Yeah.
epiphanies I had when I was writing my book was, and I had a bunch of them, because as you know, writing books is quite cathartic and quite
I
eye-opening,
do, yes.
for better
It's
or
good therapy.
worse. And I realized that I was, because I'm a helper, I help people. And
Yeah.
I was putting so much more effort and energy into helping other people achieve their dreams than I was putting into my own.
Yeah.
And that's not how it's supposed to be. We should not be the
Mm.
supporting character in our own life. We should be able
Oh, what
to
a
put
line.
our own, we have to be the star, not arrogant, but
Yes, I
we've got
love
to
that.
put the effort into our own lives,
Yeah.
and let others support us a little bit too. And
We
that was
should
a big
not be the
epiphany for
supporting
me.
character in our own lives. I love that, Gretchen. It's, yeah,
I wish I'd have
perfect
wrote
quote.
that was so much better than how I wrote it in the book. But it's true, how many of us spend all of our effort and energy helping others, and we feel good about that, and we should feel good about that, but not if it's at the expense of our own dreams and the
Yeah.
life we want for
Yes.
ourselves too. So
Amen.
we have
Yeah.
to be very mindful of that, make sure that
Yeah.
we're not, because here's what I found is that I would help all these other people and I love these people, or maybe I didn't even love these people. Maybe I just, wanted to be liked. So I
Mm.
did everything I could to help support them. The expectation was they would do the same for me. Of course, they did
Yeah.
not most of the time,
Yeah.
but then again, I never asked because I
Yeah.
didn't feel
Mm.
worthy to.
Yeah.
So that's on me.
Yeah.
Another thing I didn't like, but I had
I
to come to
never
grips with
asked.
it. And I worked on that. And now things have changed. I happen to have a spouse who was amazingly supportive and wonderful, and I couldn't ask for better, a better daughter and all that. But it also came from me, not from anybody else. It starts with me.
Yeah. That's really incredible because it really works along the concept with self-love. Like if we don't ask for it, if we don't look after ourselves, like who else are we expecting to do so? Like I think as soon as we put that expectation on somebody else, we already create unbalanced relationships, and yeah, so I really love that message. I love this so much. I'm so going to quote you on this. We can't be the supportive character in our own show. I love this. So,
Well, we give our power away.
yes.
We've got to quit doing that. And we give it
Yes.
away so willingly.
Yes.
And so effortlessly.
Yeah. And also what you said, sometimes also in that quest for being liked, and that is another thing that Rob, our mutual friend, said in that same conversation to me when we were sitting in Vienna. I still remember this so vividly. And he said to me, wanting to be liked, or in other words, sometimes also people pleasing, is a trauma response. And he just said it like that. And I thought, oh my God, what an epiphany. What an epiphany for me. For him, it was like a sentence that he obviously used quite a few times in his coaching. But for me, it was the first time I heard it in that context, in that clarity, in this one liner. And I was like, wow, thank you. Thank you. I needed to hear that because that one sentence really was a catalyst for me setting healthier boundaries in relationships, in friendships, and also allowing to let go of some that just didn't want me in their lives anymore. And that was okay. It was a big thing for me because back then I was really battling with this idea of letting go of my longest standing friendship with my friend from high school, and it hurt deeply. And then I realized that everything just fell into place for me. Everything fell into place, and I felt allowed to let go of it with love, with so much love, because I really adore her and I think she's an amazing person. And we are just dealing with a lot of things in life differently, and that's okay. She's got her way, I've got my way, and we were just not on that same path anymore, and that was okay. But hearing that from somebody else was so important for me. And it really was the catalyst for a huge, huge shift in my life in terms of setting boundaries. And again, setting boundaries is an act of self-love. We're coming back to the same topic over and over again.
Yeah.
So for the listeners in here, which are live with us or listen to the recording later on, Gretchen, I would love for you to share, what is your favorite part in the book?
That's such a great question. Okay, I have a couple of parts in the book, depending on how you define that. But one of the most powerful parts for me, and the one that I had, some of them were so hard to get through to write them, but one has to do with Rob, in that he with one sentence completely changed my grief journey with my brother. Because I was having a terrible time dealing with it. And he said in writing somewhere, what's the best thing that could come from this really awful situation? And it completely put me on a different trajectory to a very much more powerful and dynamic and amazing journey. That's when I started the podcast. It's when I really got into writing the book, because it meant I could tell Eric's story, and that was important to me, and I could honor him that way. So that I talk about that in the book, and to me that's one of my favorite ones, because it was such a vivid, tangible shift that was so powerful. But probably one of my favorite parts is the part where I talk about going to work out with the Army ROTC. And I was a professor at a university, and a couple of my students were in the Army ROTC, so Reserve Officer Training. And I had started losing weight and was going to the gym every day, doing my thing. And I'd probably lost 60 pounds at that point. And I was working out, and a guy in a Army uniform and my student walked up to me and said, we've been noticing that you are trying to reach your health goals, and we'd like to help you. And I thought, why? Why would you want to help me?
Wow.
And I don't get that. So anyway, they said, tell you what, we're here to support you. And if you want to do this, you can be at PT the next morning at 5:45 in the morning. And I said, well, thank you. But and wear your bathing suit. We're going to be in the pool.
Wow.
And I thought, oh, well, okay, no, I'm not doing that. But he said, well, if you meet in front of the ROTC building, wear sweats or whatever. And I'm like, thank you. I thank you for your service. I admire you, but no.
Yeah.
So the next morning, of course, I was there at 5:45 because I couldn't help myself, bathing suit under my workout clothes. And the abs, this is before I met my husband. I got to go on record. The cutest, most adorable, macho, gorgeous guy with the biggest white teeth comes walking up to me and says, hi, I'm Major so-and-so. Thanks for coming. We're so glad you're here. And I thought, what have I done? Oh my God. So I couldn't do half of what they were trying to get us to do. And then they said, okay, we're going to go hit the pool. And I thought, I don't know why I'm doing this. This is nuts. But I get there. I'm not a great swimmer. We had to do fireman carries. And by the time it got to that point, I was gasping for air just because I had to get in and out of the pool. And I was with about 20 cadets and a bunch of the cadre, and I was hanging on for dear life by the edge of the pool. And mind you, I'm a professor. These are students. And the one comes up to me and says, ma'am, it's your turn. And I said, I'm good. I'm good. I'm just going to hang here by the side of the pool and I try to get out. That's what I'm going to do. And she said, yes, ma'am, it's your turn.
Yeah.
And I thought, I'm not in the Army. What are you kidding? So she said, you don't have to carry anyone, but we're all going to be waiting on the other end of that pool for you. And we're not leaving until you get to that end of the pool. And I thought, oh my Lord. So I start swimming, and it's a very, very, very long pool. And I get there and my lungs are burning, and I look up and they're all standing there and they're all waiting for me. And they had acted as though there was no other place they need to be. And I didn't know what to do with that. And so I get out of the pool and I go and I sit on the bench and I'm in tears. And one of the cadre come over and he said, are you all right? And I said, I have never had anybody do that, let alone 20 of you. And he said, we will always wait for you.
Oh, that is so powerful.
And that was huge for me because I had trust issues anyway. And I went on to do really great stuff with them. I learned how to rappel. I got to fly around in a Black Hawk helicopter. They sent me out to Fort Lewis. They gave me the opportunity to tandem jump with the Golden Knights. We got in a weather delay, but so I didn't get to jump, but amazing relationship. So that's one of my favorite parts. I love
that. Is incredible, and I haven't even gotten to the part now yet. So now I've got even more so a reason to finish the book. I was so drawn into it, and then I literally just had to put it aside when I started nodding off because it was late at night by the time I got to like the quarter of the book. And I just want to say one more time, can you please share title, subtitle, and where people can
Yes.
find your book, because we are literally at the end of the podcast now, and I'm like, oh
Oh
my God, where
no.
did the time go?
Oh
I just love how time just flies when you're like right into it. And yeah,
no.
please share, Gretchen, title,
Yes.
subtitle, and where can people get your book?
Yes, so it's called The Work in Between, which is the same name as my podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's a memoir about stepping out of my shadows, which I will tell you I stole from you. But it is so
Did you?
true. Yeah, I did. And from one of the comments you made on LinkedIn, but I
Okay.
told you I stole it, so I don't feel bad.
Yeah. No.
But
I'm
it
more
was
than
such
happy
a
for you to have it.
perfect subtitle for it because it really shows my journey and how I learned how to step out of my shadows. I
Mm,
hope people find that it's inspiring and
yeah.
empowering and
Wow.
helps them understand how any external changes they want to make start on the inside. You can find
Yes.
the book
Yes.
in
Yes.
Kindle, paperback on Amazon.com, barnesandnobles.com,
Hmm.
anywhere you find books online. And
Yeah.
they're both available now. And I would love it if folks buy it and read it and send me a
And
note.
write a review, please.
Please write a review, follow.
Shameless
We
shout out.
shameless, absolutely. And I have a website, GretchenHolmesPhD.com, where you can drop in and leave me a message. I would love to hear from you.
Yeah.
But I'm really excited to share
Yeah.
my story, and hopefully folks will enjoy it.
I'm so excited that you did share your journey. And I do want to ask you one final question here
Sure.
quickly, because what was the actual deciding factor or nudge for you where you knew you had to share this book, you had to write this book and share your story with the world?
Because I kept getting asked to do that. I got an email one day
Okay.
on LinkedIn and somebody said, I really enjoy your posts. I looked for a
Mm.
book. Have you not written a book yet? I really want you to write a book. And I
That's
finally said,
incredible.
okay, I'll start writing
Okay,
a book.
then. Yeah.
So I
I
did.
am so glad you did, Gretchen, and I'm so grateful that you came back on my podcast to share about it. I honestly can't wait to continue and finish reading your book, because last night when I got into it, I thought, oh my God, I honestly wish I would have started sooner. But as I said, I had some really crazy weeks the last 4 weeks, and very late nights. So I'm grateful I started reading it. I'm so grateful that you shared so many things about your
Oh,
book. I'm so grateful for you, for our friendship, that you were here today. And we will be sharing all the links in the show notes. So there will be a link to the book, to your website, and also to your LinkedIn profile if people want to connect with you. I always feel that is the easiest way. And I'll
yes.
also share the link to our first podcast that we did a few months ago. So
Thank you.
thank you so much for being here. I'm so happy you're in my life, and I'm so happy that you shared your book. Congratulations from the bottom of my heart. And everybody
Oh,
else, please check out the show notes, connect with Gretchen, leave a review when you read the book. And
yes.
without further finishing notes, this is Gretchen and Marie signing off. Thanks for being
Thank
here. Bye for
you.
now.
That went
Ooh.
so fast. Oh my God. I'm just talking on days and days.